All right, good morning, everybody. I'm just getting the PowerPoint up and running here. Beautiful. So I hope everybody's having an awesome start to their Tuesday morning here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's a gorgeous day, guys. Spring is in the air, and we have tons and tons of stuff to bring to you guys this week. Honestly, it is an action-packed team meeting this morning. Lots going on. It's been 2 weeks since we've all gotten together. We had family reunion. There's been some stuff in the news that we'll address. Want to make sure that we're informing our associates and keeping up with what's going on of current matters. So we'll jump right into it. So yesterday, lots of news in the world around Keller Williams Realty International and leadership announcements. Hopefully you guys saw the notes that both Diana and I sent out yesterday morning in advance of this kind of conversation. Here's kind of my opinion, kind of 2 cents take on the whole deal, right? In having spent 8 years in the consulting world and at Miller Coors and working with various retailers like Walmart and Kroger, and then jumping into the KW world, senior leadership has a shelf life. That's a fact. I mean, I've seen it in my 15 years of professional life. Senior leaders have a shelf life of 5 to 7 years before they move on to new pastures or new opportunities. Am I shocked that Josh left when he did? Yes. And I'm also saying on to the next. It's not surprising, especially knowing the news that, back in October, Gary Keller created a new entity called KWRI, which is a holding company for all the various Keller Williams business entities. And he brought in someone to run that and oversee it. So Josh used to report directly to Gary. He then, through the new organizational structure, now reports to a man named Carl Liebert. And when you have a leadership change like that at a senior level, it's not surprising to me that senior level leaders want to bring in people to expand a new vision to create a stamp on the company. So while the timing of it was surprising, it's not overly surprising. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really change what we do here at a local level to serve you guys in Milwaukee, right? We are here to serve you every single day in your businesses, and will continue to be our focus. And this, in my opinion, is just noise within the world that doesn't have a direct impact on your daily business. One thing I will say, just from a standpoint of, if you hadn't seen this yet, Mark King was named the new president of Keller Williams Realty International. Mark, while he may be a new name for you and a stranger for many, Maureen, myself, Diana, Mandy, anybody else within the leadership team is very familiar with Mark. Mark actually started at KW as an agent, rose through the ranks of leadership, was a team leader, was an OP, and is now presiding over the company, taking over the reins from Josh. A phenomenal guy, really sharp, and knows the core and the essence of this business starts and ends with the agent. And that's Mark's background. So I think that it's good timing, good news. And one thing I'll tell you is change is constant and change is necessary in order for the organization to continue to evolve. So yeah, good news all around, and we'll keep moving forward and onward with that. Next up, one of the things as a leader that anytime you're in a role of leadership and you're leading other people, the goal of leadership is to challenge people's thoughts in order to challenge their actions, right? The goal of leadership is not to manage people. The goal of leadership is to lead others through their thoughts to create the desired action you're looking for, right? And so with that, I want to play you a quick little video as it relates to challenging your thoughts. And I'm going to shout out to Jay Schmidt for sending this to me yesterday morning. But I want to play a quick video, guys, to challenge your thoughts in order for you to think about your actions and the way in which you operate and attack this business. So here you go. Give me 1 sec while I switch over. And I would ask you, if you're doing other things right now, pay attention, because this is going to be important for you, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. So here we go.
Yeah. So 1, 2, 3. My name is Jesus Rivera. Today's the 21st of the 1st of April?
It's about 10 after 2, and I'm in my car.
So it's Richard Helling testing as Matt Browning on May 3rd.
Hello. Hi, my name is Kelvin too. How you doing? Yes, Kelvin. Yeah, me and my wife is looking to purchase a home within the Brentwood area. You know what?
They were ordinary Long Islanders.
Great.
Maybe go get some more then, okay?
And we sent them to meet with real estate agents to ask about buying their first home.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
All good? Thank you. Unbelievable. Thank you.
They were trained, confident, and followed scripts.
Tag in Stephen Macropolis as Nicholas Parisi.
They had no idea what houses agents would suggest, or even which communities.
We're not gonna like those schools.
But you don't want to go there. It's a mixed neighborhood.
Mixed neighborhood.
If agents are courteous and professional, how can you know that they're treating you equally compared with someone of a different race or ethnicity?
I have to say it without saying it, you know.
Behind smiles and handshakes, how do you know if they're giving you fewer options or suggesting different areas?
I'm not gonna send you anything you want to get, unless you don't want to start your car to buy your crap.
Or that rules don't apply to you and another home buyer in the same way.
Yeah, okay, I definitely need that.
Long Island is one of America's most segregated suburbs. Newsday set out to discover what role real estate agents might play in keeping it that way, potentially affecting the quality of lives.
Technically, as in a real estate agent, we shouldn't tell the buyers.
In house hunting,
Give me 1 sec. I'll pull this back up.
you and another home buyer in the same way.
Yeah, okay, I definitely need that.
Long Island is one of America's most segregated suburbs. Newsday set out to discover what role real estate agents might play in keeping it that way, potentially affecting the quality of lives.
Technically, as in a real estate agent, we shouldn't tell the buyers.
In house hunting, it's nearly impossible to see evidence of hidden discrimination. You would never know unless you go undercover.
So I share that with you as we've had some very robust discussions really over the last year, and even including last week or 2 weeks ago on Wednesday, I believe February 6th, as it relates to many of these issues and our role as a fiduciary to serve our communities and also create action within our communities towards progress, right? So on Wednesday, February 10th, there were about 25 of us who met in the North Shore office. And it was a really kind of what I would call the precipice of a starting point, right? Real stories were shared around people's actions, shed light on issues within our industry and their community. Ideas were developed, right? And having watched and read some of the Newsweek Dividing Lines documentary that was shared with me yesterday, it brought light to many things that I thought were relevant, not only in Long Island, New York, but were very relevant in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And as the group of us who met 2 weeks ago to discuss many of these topics and how that we can create change within our community of KW to impact change of the broader community within Milwaukee, is something that we're definitely going to take a focus on in terms of action items and making progress. Not just in a 1 month period or 1 week period, a 1 month period, but over the course of time to make, again, progressive steps to ensure that we are serving all sorts of people in our role and really taking a leadership role within our industry across Milwaukee. So what I want to do too is a follow-up from the discussion that was had last week. 2 things I'm going to do is first, I'm going to send the group out, and Diana will send this to the Lake Country group out this afternoon in our weekly insights and resources. I'm going to share you the link to the documentary. It's a 45-minute movie with also a a breakdown of the documentary in terms of the demographics and things that we're faced with in the Long Island community that I think are very relevant to our communities here in Milwaukee, especially with, it's no secret that Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in the United States. And I think there are a lot of correlative issues that were uncovered in that documentary that was released early last year that we can all utilize to leverage from an education standpoint. So you'll be getting that documentary from me today. And again, my goal in leadership is to challenge your thoughts in order to challenge your thinking, or to challenge your thoughts in order to challenge your actions, right? And then again, with that, then too, what I want to do across all of KW Milwaukee is I'm going to be leading a social equity task force, right? I've been having some conversations with people across Milwaukee around what it is, taking the meeting from 2 weeks ago to say, okay, we learned a lot. There were a lot of raw emotions that were shared and things like that. Now, how do we create action items behind that? So what I want you to do is, if you're interested in taking part in this task force and helping us with this issue and in creating change within not only the KW community, but leveraging our professional way in which we do this business at a high level and in impacting our industry and impacting where people live, I'd invite you to join me on Friday, March 5th at noon. This will be an in-person meeting in the North Shore Training Room. There's plenty of space to spread out, and lunch will be provided. And we're going to create this task force to create action items and leverage what we can do to create change one step at a time, right? And knowing that, if you were on family reunion last week and took part in Inspirational Morning, there was a topic around how do you make change? You make change 1% at a time. Right. And many people have heard me say this too. How do you make change? How do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. Right. And so that's what we're looking to do. And that's what I'm hoping to achieve. So be on the lookout for that Long Island Dividing Lines document, as well as the documentary that I'll be sharing out, and Diana will be sharing out this afternoon. And if you are interested in helping us take part in this action item task force, be on the lookout Friday, March 5th at the North Shore Training Person, live in person. So mark your calendars. Cool. All right, next up, another big topic. And guys, if you don't think this can happen to you, I'm telling you, I've already seen it a handful of times already in 2020, and at minimum a handful of times already in 2021. And so this is a big topic that you need to be aware of as it relates to your IT security and how hackers are essentially mirroring your identity to get after people's financial security. So Sherry Hippenbecker, I'm going to have her jump on and help us lead the discussion. Sherry is the Chief Legal Counsel for Knightberry Title. And Sherry, I'm going to turn it over to you. Sherry Hippenbecker.
I know, I had to unmute, it was hidden. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for the task force. I think I would like to be a part of it. I don't know if people outside of the KW family can join in, but that would certainly be a passion of mine. So I will certainly be there. Everybody, business email compromise, wire fraud, you heard it. You thought it went away. It hasn't gone away. It won't go away. This is something that the criminals take full advantage of, and the real estate market in the United States is very hot. And it's simply, there's no benefit to these criminals stopping. They're not going to jail. They're not in the United States. They're all overseas. In fact, some are state funded. North Korea state funds criminals to be able to get into emails in the United States to be able to compromise transactions and be able to steal money. Here's some numbers from the FBI from 2019. The 2020 stats are not out yet. But business email compromise accounted for $1.7 billion lost in the United States in the year 2019. And that was reported through the Internet Crime Complaint Center, which is through the FBI. It's just an intake location. In Wisconsin in 2019, again, 2020 numbers aren't available. There were 296 victims in the state of Wisconsin, accounting for $8.9 million. So just in our little state, $8.9 million basically went overseas because people's email wasn't safely secured. And as noted in this little section here, it's not just real estate transactions, but just know that the real estate sector is a major sector that the criminals want to get into because there's so many people involved in the real estate sector. You have sellers, you have buyers, you have realtors, you have lenders, you have telecoms, you have lawyers, you have, did I capture everybody? So if you compromise, if the criminals compromise one of the parties in that transaction. There's 7 or 8 different parties in every single transaction. They give access to all of the information, the names of the people, who's handling the money, who's handling the closing, how to be able to solicit and entice somebody instead of wire transferring the funds to the correct party, typically the title company handling the settlement, in your case, many times Focus Title or Knightberry, to the criminals. And then once it's in the criminal account, typically domestically in the United States, within 24 to 48 hours, it gets shipped overseas. And once it's shipped overseas, your possibility of recovering those funds is practically nothing. Here's a couple examples I will walk through in a few moments that are compromises or spoofs that took place recently with Knightberry Title. Here's the first example. You'll just see from February 12th. It's only February 23rd, so just 2 weeks ago. This is a spoof situation. And a realtor's email was hacked. It was up in Tomahawk, Wisconsin. What's interesting about this is the spoofer, the criminal, says they pretend to become Michelle Jaji, which is one of our closers at Knightberry Title. And they grab her, because they've compromised a buyer's, a realtor's email in this particular case. They have Michelle's contact information. So they go ahead and use her her closing and all of her contact information, but they're really smart. They change the phone numbers. They always change the phone numbers. And they slightly spoof what the name of the sender is. Here it says Michelle Jaji, but if you look, it says escrow closing, CLOSIENG @gmail.com. That's clearly not Michelle's. The phone number is wrong if you call it. And you'll see that here the time that it's sent is 9:56, and it's an email supposedly from Michelle to the buyer that says, hey, we need to get your money for a closing. The buyer says in reply, and by the way, the reply is at 4:58 p.m. when it was 9:56 a.m. The reply is, I thought we talked about this yesterday, Michelle, that I was going to bring a cashier's check. So the buyer's had a conversation with our closer and says, hey, I thought a cashier's check was okay. And then the criminal, now Pat Huganen with the same email address, interesting enough, says, oh, because of good funds law, you need to wire it. Again, 10:15. And then at quote 5:22, the buyer says, okay, not a problem. I'll go ahead, give me the wire transfer instructions. I'll go ahead and send it. And the hacker goes, great, here's the wire transfer instructions. And the wire transfer instructions are our wire transfer instructions, which the hacker had because they had hacked into the realtor and the buyer, in this case's email as well. And they say, send it over to Richard T. Shenling at Crown Bank Center. By the way, would this fool you? Maureen Stolly, I'm looking at you. Would this fool you? Would you send the money here? Yeah. Well, this buyer was fooled. Gratefully, the money didn't get sent because his bank was like, something's wrong here. And by the way, why was the difference here between the 10:42 a.m. and then the 5:22 p.m.? It's because the criminal, the hacker, actually, we're here. The criminal was 7 hours ahead, someplace here in Africa. This is where most of these people are located that are the criminals that are compromising all of our emails, is here and over here. And you can usually find that out just by looking at the timestamps on the emails. I'm going to pass by one more and just talk about one that happened with Focus Title with Jenny Klug here. Again, it's a situation where unfortunately a realtor's email was compromised. They were able to grab all of Jenny's information. They created a mock email account. Here it says Jenny K at FocusTLTLEWI.com. Jenny Klug, is your email address FocusTLTLWI.com? It's not. Is your phone number 414-625-9090? It's not.
Nope.
Is that your cell phone number? Is that your fax number? These criminals are pretty sophisticated. They grab all of your contact information and slightly change. So it's always fun, by the way, to call these. This one goes to a fax. This one goes to some auto dealership. And this one, I can't recall where it goes to. But even in this case, the criminals reached out, so, spoofing you, Jenny. This is not your email, right?
Nope.
Spoofing you, pretending to be you, reached out to the buyer and CC'd the buyer's realtor. But instead of titling realty REALTY, you see it's RAELTY.com. And it says, the criminal says, hey, tell us when you're going to wire the funds, buyer. Buyer replies, in this case, at 8:50 a.m. versus 9:01 a.m., because this is a slightly more sophisticated criminal. I've been waiting for the wire transfer instructions. We're closing tomorrow? I thought we were closing 4 days from now or 5 days from now. The criminal replies, as Jenny, We'll send you the wire transfer instructions, but I got to contact the seller first. That's at 8:55 a.m. At 11:08 a.m., the criminal, posing as Jenny again, says, here's the wire transfer instructions. Send us $307,000. Jenny, what happened between 8:55 a.m. and 11 a.m.?
Well, Alex sent the wiring instructions to the buyer and then got a phone call from the buyer stating, what are we moving up this closing for and what's happening? And all this happened in the meantime. So they were able to get our wiring instructions that we had sent over so they could change them to what they wanted this guy to see. But the buyer felt something was wrong, and thank God he did. And he called us and we were able to stop this from happening thanks to the buyer thinking something wasn't right.
Because conversations had taken place that please always talk to us before you wire transfer money. In between that 8:55 and 11 a.m., by the way, there people had been reaching out saying, hey, can you send the wire transfer instructions, final closing documents? This is a very sophisticated hacker in this particular case because they're asking you guys to complete this. They probably had compromised one of the realtors' email and probably had compromised the buyer's email, as far as I can tell. So the buyer receives 2 conflicting wire transfer instructions, is smart enough to call, but all of this could have been avoided. All of this could have been avoided had some simple techniques been employed that I'm going to show you in a moment to be able to protect your email. I'm escaping out to my email address. I understand everybody at KW uses Gmail. Correct, Charlie? Great. As we're looking around, I want you guys to go on a different screen and start walking through the steps that I'm going to walk through with you. This is my Gmail account, and I'm going to give you a few moments. The first is you're going to get into your Gmail, and we're going to make sure that everybody that's on this Zoom meeting has 2-factor or multi-factor authentication. So you go to the upper right-hand corner of your Gmail where your picture is, and you click on that. And then it says Manage Google Account. Click on that. Once you're in there, on the left-hand side, by the way, I'm legal counsel, I'm not IT, but this is something that is easy that even a stupid person that went to law school can figure out. And it's the most important thing that you can do to be able to have multi-factors to be able to access your email. So you're in security. And what you're going to do is you are going to confirm that you have multi-factor authentication on your email, which means that if somebody is going to log into your email, they need not only your email address, your password, but they also need a code that's going to be sent to your phone periodically if you're logging in from a new IP address, a new device, a new computer, a new cell phone, a new iPad, that you're going to get a second 6-digit code that's going to be emailed to you. So if you don't have 2-step verification on your email, which I just showed you, I'm just going to go back here, you need to add that right away. So again, you went to the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you chose security, and you're going to verify. It says 2-step verification. I've had on mine since forever. That's number one. The second thing is, even if you change your Google so that you have 2-step verification, and now you know criminals can't get in, or at least it's much more difficult for them to get in, by the way. They eventually will find a way to be able to override this 2-step verification. It really doesn't exist right now because it's too difficult, but that doesn't mean this is going to always be the case that they're not going to be able to figure it out. Right now, it is the best protection that we have. You still need to do one more thing. We need to verify that the criminals haven't set up filters so that there is an automatic transfer of incoming emails from, say, Charlie or Jenny or Maureen to the criminals. So the next thing you want to do is go to your Gmail again, go to your settings, which is the tool, click See All Settings, and then you're going to go Filters and Blocks and Forwarding and Pop and IMAP. When you're at Filters and Blocks, check and make sure that there's no filters there, because this is what the criminals will do. They will create a filter like this that says, any email that comes in from Charlie to me, I am going to have it go to some sort of skip the inbox, or I can have it go to, I can delete it or forward it automatically, something so that it doesn't get into the realtor's actual email. It gets hidden and sent over to the criminals. So make sure that those filters, I'm just going to skip this one, are off. If they are on, please remove them. that's it. Those are the best protections that we have right now to be able to protect your email. Know that this is live, that people are losing money, and these simple steps are certainly going to help somebody from being involved in one of these situations where they lose money. By the way, if you have somebody who has lost money, they've sent the wire transfer funds to the criminal, nobody caught it. It is certain steps that you need to take very, very quickly in order to see if you can recover the funds. Within about 24 to 48 hours, the criminals move the money from the US domestic account to an offshore account. It's almost impossible to retrieve the money once it's overseas. So if you hear anybody say, oops, I think I sent the money to the wrong location, let's get involved like yesterday to get this done. We get the FBI involved, we get the local police, we send the person that sent those funds to their originating bank, ask them to recall the money due to a wire fraud, and we try to lock down the money. Again, time is of the essence in that, and we do have a playlist that I will send to Charlie on what is suggested by the American Land Title Association to be able to stop the funds from moving overseas if you can, the steps that you can employ. Charlie, hopefully that's what you were hoping for, and we covered everything there. If not,
Sherry, you are always a wealth of knowledge. We appreciate it because, guys, there's 151 people on this call, plus probably another 30 or 40 on Facebook. Here's what I'll tell you. Wire fraud situations are real. And I get the phone call when someone's crying saying, oh my God, I just transferred $300,000 to XYZ country, help me. And to Sherry's point, we need to be proactive in our solutions to prevent that from happening in the future.
Can I just add something real quick too? On the closing end of things, I don't want the agents to scare their buyers and sellers like you can never wire money. That's not what this is about, because we have people that are afraid to wire money. We don't want them to be afraid. It's about you guys doing the two-step is huge, and then letting us as the closing agent talk to the buyers directly, get them the wiring instructions directly. We contact them to confirm them. That's just really the biggest thing, is don't scare people, just be smart. That's really what we need, just everybody to be smart.
Inform and educate and confirm where you're sending money. Inform, educate, and confirm, and then do your steps as it relates to protecting your data and your information and your email. So I'll get this information from Sherry. I'll also make sure that we send out a quick Loom video of a screen share so you guys understand on a very simplistic basis. I know Sherry may have gone through this fast of exactly how to set up your two-factor authentication, as well as deleting any sort of filters that you may not be aware of that have been set up within your email. So we'll make sure to get you all this information in the follow-up here this afternoon. Cool. Thank you, Sherry and Jenny, for jumping on and sharing that stuff.
You're welcome.
Awesome. All right, guys, now we're jumping in. And last week, boom, we talked about redlining this morning. Boom. We talked about IT security. Boom. Now we're talking about family reunion recap. If we didn't have enough to give you guys on a beautiful Tuesday morning, here we go. And we're going to give you some big ticket takeaways as to what was shared last week at Keller Williams family reunion, right? I want to remind the group that you have until April 12th to access the platform for those of you who purchased the ticket to family reunion to rewatch any of the vision speeches, the state of the industry, or as it relates if you want to go check out various other breakouts or things that you didn't have access to, that you didn't have a chance to. One of the things that was talked about in the very beginning, day one of family reunion, was it relates to Zillow, and Maureen's going to go more into some commentary as it relates to Zillow. But I just found out yesterday, and I'm going to share this news with you. Make no mistake about it, Zillow's coming into Milwaukee. What do I mean by that? This is Milwaukee Metro MLS brokerage designations, and Zillow is now a registered brokerage within the Milwaukee Metro MLS and with GMAR, and they have 2 registered licensed associates working the Milwaukee market. So oftentimes I hear agents say, oh, I see things happening on the coast, or I see things happening in these big major metropolitan areas. Milwaukee's not on their radar. No, Milwaukee's on their radar, and it's very clearly evident by them having a brokerage license with licensed associates working within the brokerage. So I'm just making you aware of what's going on within the marketplace. one of the things they talked about as agents in terms of how do we compete effectively in this market is all around how we're providing unique insights, unique access, and unique services, right? And as we cultivate our relationships to the point in which our relationships begin to transact business, how are we cultivating unique insights? How are we cultivating unique access, and how are we cultivating unique services throughout it, right? And there was a great reminder, and they had a conversation around compensation, right? And the compensation is determined ultimately by 4 items. 1, they need the need for your service. 2, how well you perform your service. 3, the difficulty in replacing you. And 4, how many people you serve, right? And then lastly, 7 traps between you and financial wealth, which was a great conversation. But I wanted to have Maureen jump on because she had some really great takeaways and nuggets as it relates to family reunion. And I asked her to share her takeaways, leading our group of KW Milwaukee, of what she planned to go back and watch and really ingrain herself in to really begin creating, implementing action items for her and her business. So Maureen, it's all yours.
Okay, good morning. I want to talk quickly about the vision speech, the opening vision speech that Jay Papasan and Gary Keller hosted, and their focus on Zillow. Zillow made 2 very, very strategic moves in the last couple of weeks. One was they bought Showing Time, and what's going to happen with their access to Showing Time, it's going to give them your buyers' names, your buyers' contact information, your sellers' names, your sellers' contact information. They are gathering as much data as they can. That is what access to Showing Time is going to do for them, right? And what are they? They are a supplier of data, and the more data they can supply to the consumers, the more consumers are going to visit their site, right? So they've done a very strategic job. And Gary Keller said, don't make any mistake. They don't buy startups. They buy things that are known entities. So Showing Time is not a startup. Showing Time is in just about every MLS in the country. They were very strategic in buying Showing Time. That gives them as much access as you could possibly imagine to a buyer and a seller, right? Number 2 is they also launched brokerages in every major metropolitan city in the country. As Charlie noted, we see the managing broker, we see there are 2 names associated just within Milwaukee. So what does that mean for you? That means exactly what Gary Keller, if you follow Gary Keller in every family reunion for the past, I'd say 3 or 4 years, he has talked about, be very mindful of what Zillow is doing. So for the past couple of years, he has told us to be aware of it. And now it is actually happening. So by creating brokerages, what they're doing is they're now gathering all their data. They're getting more leads to their site because more people are going on their site because their data is now accurate, right? They're capturing more leads. And what are they doing? They're giving them to their local brokerage, right? So the local brokerage now has MLS data, Showing Time. They have all the contact information for all of those people, right? It is data acquisition. And so what we learned, Gary Keller's takeaway was, okay, don't be so worried about Showing Time. Be mindful of what Showing Time's ultimate goal is to put you out of business, right? As long as you understand what their goal is and you know how you're going to combat it. Where are they weak? They are weak in customer service, right? They are a discount brokerage that is there to just churn and burn transactions. And buyers and sellers are out there thinking, how can I get the best deal possible? And I have access to all the data. They're going to be very attracted to Zillow. So what can you do? You need to up your game. You need to up your customer service. That was the really interesting takeaway from his conversation was stop worrying about Zillow, up your game. We've given you all of the technology you could possibly imagine. As Charlie says, KW has taken us wide with technology, and we just need to take that technology, chunk it down. I love the 1%, chunk it down and go deep with it, right? Staying in contact with your past clients in your sphere is the critical game right here, right? And we get very caught up in what Zillow is doing. Don't worry about what Zillow is doing. Go out there and stay in relationship with your people and bring them more value than Zillow could ever imagine bringing, right? Everybody wants to be taken care of. They want to be treated. If you watched any of the family reunion breakouts on customer service and luxury marketing, it is all about, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to serve you, right? And if you can get that into your head that you are here to serve in any way, shape, or possible to help a client move from point A to point B, that means staying in relationship with them, being of service outside of the real estate realm, meaning home improvement people, whatever it takes to stay in relationship with your people is how we're going to combat Zillow. That's it for Zillow. KW, we built it wide. Now it's time to go deep. Stabilization of the platform is the goal of 2021. So I would say if you do anything, go back and watch the opening vision speech with Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. That is just, I mean, he talks off the cuff. And what I love about watching Gary Keller is I've been watching him now for 7 years, and he is able to warn you of things that are going to come, and people don't pay as much attention. They need to focus on what he is saying, because he's a researcher. He's a data guru. He is watching the market on such a high level. And he comes out with stuff that you go, that is never going to happen. Zillow opening a brokerage in our city, that's never going to happen. Oh, he called that a couple of years ago as agents were buying space on Zillow and giving Zillow their data. He warned us of that, and boom, it all just crashed down 2 weeks ago. So there's my takeaway on Zillow. Strengthen your relationships to broaden your sphere. And the last, we're going to talk more about family unit another time and go deeper with it. But the last thing I thought was super interesting, watching Scripps Championship. I came across it. I thought I'm going to dial into that and see, because I've never been one to, when I first came to KW, to say I'm going to follow a script. But script is really just giving you action words to help a person move forward, right? So I watched the script, and I had my team watching the script off, and it was fascinating. They asked questions. They made them script against each other on simple questions like, gosh, you're my childhood friend and you were kind of a goof as a kid, and now you're a new real estate agent. Why would I give you my transaction, my home, to sell for me, right? They did a script off that was amazing. Another simple one was, what are you going to do? I have nothing to buy. There's nothing out there to buy. Why am I going to sell my house now? There were amazing scripts for that. So just understand the value of scripts. If you can get back in and watch the script off, that I thought that was fantastic. So those were my two nuggets. I have many more. As Charlie referenced, the financial talk between Gary Keller and Jay Papasan and the 7 steps to financial freedom. I think that was the name of it, Charlie, right?
Yeah.
Honest to goodness, I watched it, and there's a number of you. Corey Bolt was texting me during almost all of Family Reunion. Jay Schmidt was texting me. These are people who are high producers within our market center, and they are watching all of Family Reunion, and they're sending me separate texts like, oh my gosh, what do you think of that? What do you think about that? Hey, that's amazing. This 7 traps, I had probably 6 people texting me at the time that this was going on. And I looked at this, I watched this, and I thought, everybody needs to understand this. This is a simple how to build your wealth, and what are the traps that keep you from that. So the Gary Keller, Jay Papasan, 7 traps between you and financial wealth, I highly recommend you watching. That's all I got.
Cool, guys. But at the end of the day, how do you boil it all down in terms of if you wanted to go back and watch it? Is what I don't want you to hear is Zillow this, Zillow that, Zillow this, Zillow that. It's nothing to do about that. It's more so of understanding the realization that the game is changing, and how do you compete more effectively in today's game. That's all it is. That is all Family Reunion's platform is. The game is changing. Learn how to play the game to compete effectively, because you will either be proactive in terms of your level of competition, or you will be reactive in terms of your level of competition. And if you are reactive, you will most likely be on a very slippery slope as it relates to your business development and your business income. The other thing I would tell you, to Maureen's point, is there was a lot of conversation around financial wealth, and how in ensuring that we are doing what we can to provide and raise people's financial acumen. And as it relates to, money comes into this real estate world and our professional well-being very, very fast. And are we setting our people up to have the right financial acumen for long-term sustained success? Honestly, it's one of the best conversations that was had during Family Reunion. And the last thing I'll plug you is, even if you didn't have access to Family Reunion, go check out on Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, season 5 of How to Think Like a CEO. And the podcast is all around, it's Gary Keller's personal podcast all around, and the latest season is all around financial wealth and financial acumen. So we just wanted to bring that to your guys' radar. For those of you that jumped into Family Reunion last week, you have until April 12th to access the platform. There was tons of good information. Again, how do you compete effectively to the market that we are in? And you have until April 12th to check out the platform. And if you don't have access to the platform, at the very least, check out Gary Keller's podcast, How to Think Like a CEO.
Can I just make a comment? One more comment?
Yeah.
Since I started talking, I've now gotten 7 texts from 7 different people saying, tell me more about your favorite takeaways or or ones I should go back and look at. So we're going to work further on that with Charlie. But the 7 steps that Charlie talked about to financial freedom, or whatever I can't remember what that was called, but the 7 takeaways or 7 that Gary and Jay did, that is actually a takeoff from his Think Like a CEO series. I believe it's chapter 5 or series 5 that he focuses on that exact topic. But if you're not listening to his podcast, honestly, it's one of the best podcasts out there. People talk about it outside of the real estate realm. It's just how to think bigger and how to go wider with your life, basically. So I highly encourage that.
Cool. Thank you for providing your takeaways. All right, Lindsay, roll us through Tech Tuesday. What do we got? Agent sites, right? You want to compete against Zillow? How do you effectively do it? By building your own platform with consumer search.
Exactly. So this is a follow-up from 2 weeks ago, setting up your site. Now, how do you customize it? How do you provide even more value to drive traffic to your website for your consumers? So tech workshops, again, they are in person today, 1 o'clock and then 11 o'clock on Thursday in Lake Country. And so we're just going to be talking about what sort of pages can you add to your site to provide value. So a couple examples that I'll be specifically going through today is a home evaluation form and a blog post, or a blog page, actually. You can also add a mortgage calculator, a school search, trusted professionals. So there's different tools that you can combine and add into your website. Again, drive traffic to your website, to your app. It's the same login for your consumers. And then adding these additional pages is just going to allow you to share these on your social media pages, share them on any of your marketing materials. If you're doing a Facebook ad, you can drive traffic to your website as well. And so just a couple examples, again, that home evaluation form, it's a really nice looking form. This is Brad Yates' website. And so this is just a snapshot of what it's going to look like. So we'll be going through specifics on how you can set this up today and on Thursday. That's all I got.
Cool. Thank you, Lindsay. All right, guys, real quick before we jump into compliance, I want to reiterate something that Steph shared 2 weeks ago. And this continues to be a theme, and I'm going to hammer this home until it's seared into your brains, but it's all around communication. We've had more ethics conversations or people's inability to reply effectively to communication as it relates to their fiduciary within the transaction. So I want to just touch on a few points that Steph touched on last week. One, professionalism around communication. Do not create communication roadblocks by insisting that you can only be reached via text. Don't create roadblocks. Open the waves of communication for your clients, for your co-brokes, for whoever is involved in the transaction. 2, coordinate time to speak verbally. Nothing drives me more nuts when someone texts me back, just text me, boom, boom, boom. There's no emotion in the text or email, and oftentimes the text or email is completely taken out of context. Coordinate time to speak with your co-brokes. 3, scheduled showing times. Respect the schedule. It amazes me still that people are not respecting the schedule and not respecting sellers' wishes as it relates to how many people are in a home at a time. Everybody's being recorded at all times. Don't be the one that ends up on the front page of the journal by doing something stupid. Respect the schedule. Last one, and this is the one that I'm going to absolutely hammer home, and I'm going to make it blank. Provide showing feedback after your showings. It is amazing to me that we still have agents, because they move too fast and they're not thinking about their co-broke on the backside. Remember, when you represent KW, you represent all of us, and we all get one bad apple ruins the bunch, right? And we see it time and time again where a listing agent calls me and said, "Hey, Charlie, I just got to share with you some feedback. The seller was upset that XYZ agent didn't provide feedback." And the XYZ agent is a Keller Williams agent. And the seller's comments to us were, "Wow, I'm shocked that your own company's agents wouldn't provide feedback on one of your listings." I get those emails and texts at least once a week. guys, do yourselves a favor in terms of your reputation within the industry to provide showing feedback. So I'm going to hammer home professionalism around communication moving forward, but guys, make sure we're following standards and we're holding ourselves to, higher, the ways in which we do this business at the highest level possible. All right, Joan, wrap us up. Compliance updates. What do we got coming down the pike around excluded listings in the MLS?
Thank you, Charlie. What a information-packed meeting. This was great. I had some questions in the last couple of weeks about that clear compliance, clear cooperation policy that NAR put out last year, and it's adopted all across the country. And I think because of the wording in the policy, it is a little confusing to some of the agents, especially agents who have a lot of listings and a lot of excluded listings, a lot of delayed listings. And so I wanted to just quickly put this out there so that we can be clear. If you still have questions about a specific moment in time and with a listing that you have, call me and we can talk about your case individually. But to be clear, and this is the intent of the clear cooperation policy from NAR, if a property is marketed to the public, then it must be marketed in MLS. And obviously excluded listings are not marketed in MLS. So you cannot market them to the public, and that includes co-brokes, unless it is marketed in MLS. Okay, just a couple of slides here. And this is pretty much what they're talking about. If a listing is submitted to MLS as an excluded listing, then it cannot be marketed to the public in any way. It can be introduced within a brokerage, say our Keller Williams Facebook page, but absolutely not introduced to other agents and other brokerages or to the consumer. And this is where sometimes we get into a little bit of slippage where we post something that is excluded in our Facebook page, but then somebody else talks about it, and then somebody else talks about it and gets out to other agents and other brokerages, and then sometimes to the public. And now you have MLS calling in. Make sure that you realize that this is only about excluded listings and not delayed listings. It's a separate listing. It does not include single party listings, but they must be signed. And you cannot be marketing any property if it doesn't have a listing contract attached to it. You must have a signed single party listing or a signed listing contract to be literally marketing to any property outside of the company.
Joni,
So,
can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Did you talk about what the fine is if somebody does?
Yes, that's on the next slide.
Okay.
Well, actually, this slide is the next one. And what it is the actual definition of public marketing. So if you're a little confused about what public marketing is, this is the policy statement. I won't read it all, but you can sort through it. Of course, it means anything on any websites or social media, email blasts. Make sure that if it's an excluded listing, you are not doing any of this to anyone outside of the company. If you keep the listing confidential internal to your company, you have not triggered the policy statement. But check with me. If you have a question about something, check with me. Next slide on that. So what happens if it is found that excluded listings is marketed to the public? They will say within 1 business day that property has to be now active in MLS. You have to yank it out of excluded and it has to go into MLS active. And then they have fines. And this last slide is a rundown of the slides of the fines that are sanctioned. And they are steep. And I'm putting this in the slides because you have to realize what they're talking about. $1,000 a day if it is not. If it is publicly marketed and not included in MLS in 1 business day. So you have 1 business day to get it into active. If not, it's $1,000 a day. And then second and third offense that they have you running to the bank, and then could be possible suspension of MLS services. So they're serious. This is a national policy. What they're trying to do is keep people from marketing properties not utilizing the MLS system, which, as NAR says, this is the fair and free market system that we have for our inventory.
Yeah, so
any questions, let me know.
To address a couple questions that came up in the chat section.
Sure.
Guys, here's the kind of rule of thumb. If you have an excluded listing, I would not put anything in terms of details in writing. Exactly. You can have a conversation verbally with co-brokes. You can have conversations verbally describing things and even sharing the address verbally. I would not put anything in writing. As it relates to sharing anything in writing, is it really, be it email or Facebook or whatever it may be, I would be vague in terms of the generality of price, the generality around bedroom bathroom count, and I would be vague and I would not give the details to the address. So for an example, I signed an excluded listing contract in Sussex, Wisconsin, right? I would say, hey guys, I have an upcoming listing in Sussex, Wisconsin, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, around 500,000. It may be 569, it may be 529, it may be whatever price may be, but I would be very general around the description when sharing it in writing. Verbally, you can share it. We had a couple situations come up in the past week. I've had a lot of conversations with the MLS on this topic. And so again, everything I'm telling you is if you're in writing, make it vague. And if you can have a verbal conversation with more detail so again, if I was trying to source buyers for specific property and let's say Whitefish Bay that was excluded, I may throw it on our Facebook group. Hey, I have an excluded listing in Whitefish Bay around 600,000. Please contact me for more information. And then the agent calls me. I provide them the details to it verbally, but I put nothing in writing. Nothing, no texts. I wouldn't leave a voicemail. I would just do everything verbally, direct one-to-one communication. So if you have questions on this, don't hesitate to reach out to Joni or myself. We're here to help you. We've both been very involved in this with the MLS and trying to help you protect yourself as it relates to excluded listings. Cool. All right, wrapping it up, guys. We have 2 more things, and I'm just going to give you the quick hitters on market insights because it's been over a month since I've given you the weekly insights. Here's what we got coming on, right? Here is the showing time activity in the state of Wisconsin. Yes, I'm still using showing time data. The Zillow transaction hasn't gone through, and until we have a new platform to use, it's the only platform we have available as it relates to data and telling us what's going on. So if you look here, the light blue line is 2019 showings. The dark blue line is 2020 showings. The orange line is 2021 showings. What's my intake or what's my nuggets from this information or data? 2021, it's outpacing 2019, but lagging 2020. Why? It's simply a function of a lack of inventory, not a lack of demand. So just because showings are down slightly versus last year, I simply believe it to be a lack of inventory, not because of a lack of demand. Here we go, sales absorption rate. This is the percentage of inventory that goes under contract on a weekly basis. Here's an interesting little nugget for you. Over the last 12 weeks, the average was 9.1%. Okay, on a weekly basis, 9.1% of the inventory is going under contract. You can see here last week, it was at 12.3%, right? That was its peak since going back to the week of September 7th, 2020. 12.3% of the inventory went under contract last week. The 24-week average, which we discussed, was 9.1%, and the 4-week average is 11.5%. Again, I go back to the sales absorption remain extremely strong. This is the first indicator I look at when understanding where demand is going within the marketplace. 2, here is your units that have gone under contract on a weekly basis. This is a little concerning to me, but it's not the end of the world. Because why? It's still elevated when we compare it to prior years on a week by week basis when we look at February. So it's still elevated. January and February on a weekly basis of units that have gone under contract are still elevated versus prior January and February's. It's just not as robust as what we had seen last fall, but that's historically the average and the trend that we've usually seen. And the good news is here, usually, ironically, November and December are better historical months in residential real estate than January and February. And right now, if we just look at January, February of 21 versus November and December of 2020, January and February are healthier from a units that went under contract. But again, we're well off our peak of where we saw last fall. So it's elevating, but it's not elevating it to where we need to yet. And I'll be paying very close attention to this as we head into the March timeframe. Here's probably my number one biggest concern when I look at this data on a weekly basis. This is your new inventory units, not those that are going under contract. My apologies. So new unit inventory units, here you go. Last week was 331 units. It was the fourth lowest number of new units that came to the marketplace. And when you look at the other 3 weeks that were lower, they were the holiday weeks. It was Thanksgiving, it was Christmas, and then the week of New Year's Eve. So the fact that this is trending down on a 1 week basis, I'm going to be paying attention to that, because we really, at this point of the year in February, is when we like to start to see the spikes of new inventory coming to the market. Again, 1 week is an anomaly, 2 weeks is a trend. So I'll be paying attention to this next week to give you ideas of what's going up. And here's my trend analysis. Straight up, it's concerning, but let's see what's going on. Cool. That's it for the weekly insights. And then lastly, guys, it is February 23rd, and we have two more exciting announcements for you. One, Mandy, I'm flipping it over to you. Give us what's coming up in the month of March on our training calendar.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlie. In the presence of time, make sure to check out the full training calendar. And if it's not on your personal calendar, put it on your personal calendar. So today in launch coaching, Amanda Schroeder is going through a family reunion recap. So if you want kind of more about what Maureen was talking about and some of the other people, check out Amanda's class today. And then Janine on Thursday has a local lender talking about tips and tricks for competitive offer writing. And they're also going to be doing the lead gen corner again for proven scripts to call homeowners to list their home. Janine has gotten 2 listing appointments out of this script. So that's this week on Tuesday and Thursday. This Friday as well, for all of the team admins, please don't forget, we have Nicole Zuber, who is the head of MAPS coaching, joining all of the admins this Friday to pour into you guys. So I'm super excited about that. That's this Friday at 2:30. And then March training calendar that you see on your screen here, we will be sure to send out with the recap email. But we have some awesome stuff coming up in March, and especially next Wednesday. In addition to family reunion, they're doing an extended national market update that's available to everyone, even if you didn't sign up for family reunion. That's going to be available via Connect Live on Wednesday. And then there's a bunch of other stuff coming up. We have our first KW Young Professionals event happening in Lake Country on Wednesday, the 17th. We're bringing Dave Jenks back. He's going to be going through all the secrets of the MREA. So mark your calendar for that on the 24th. Writing a competitive CMA. Willie Stale is going to be going through this the last Friday of the month. So be sure to come to that. Be able to go into a listing appointment with everything that you need to get the listing and be able to come up with a great price. So that's going to be really great. And then of course we have the Social Equality Task Force next week, Friday, as well as a bunch of other stuff. So we'll send this out. We'll go through it more in detail later, but just an idea of what's coming.
Beautiful.
Chuck, can I add something?
Stillman, sure.
Yes, in this month's WRA magazine is a very good tutorial on FHA financing, all sorts of information about how it's done, what are the standards, what are the procedures, what are the qualifications. It's a very informative article in the WRA magazine from this month.
Awesome. Stillman, thanks for sharing that little tidbit in the WRA magazine. And then guys, lastly, we're super stoked to announce, this has been a long time coming. For those of you in Lake Country, you know the feeling of what it's like. We are officially opening KW Innovation, which is going to be servicing the Wauwatosa, Elm Grove, and Brookfield communities. Doors open, soft opening tomorrow, Wednesday, the 24th. So if you are in and around the area and you want to check it out, feel free. For those of you who are aligned with that what I call the TEB area, Tulsa, Elm Grove, Brookfield, and you want to come in and get your printer set up, check out the space, or let's say you're from the Lake Country office or you're the North Shore office and you're doing showings in Elm Grove, Tulsa area, and you need to quickly meet a client, or you need to get in to print something, or you need to print a data sheet or whatever. Know that you now have a community or a market center directly in the center of the market that you can tap into for resources that will be staffed to serve you and your businesses. So here is the address. It is 1001 West Innovation Drive. It is fully stocked, rocked, and ready to roll, baby. So be on the lookout. Tomorrow we are opening the doors, and more details forthcoming as it relates to that space, so that you guys have more areas to meet clients and serve your business. So stay tuned for more exciting news as it relates to that space and our expansion plans. Cool. Guys, it was an action-packed Tuesday morning. Thank you for staying on. There was lots and lots to go over. Oh, and then lastly, finally, forgot to mention this, Lunch and Learn tomorrow with Gail Zeman to open the new space at 12 noon. So if you want to check out the Lunch and Learn with Gail, Mandy, myself, Paul will be there with Gail to lead the Lunch and Learn. So my apologies. Again, guys, tons of action-packed stuff, lots of information this week. Thank you for jumping on. We will make sure to send out all of everything you need in the Insights and Resources Weekly Recap. Any questions or any friction you have in your business, know that we're here to serve you and help you grow whatever it is that you may need to do with your business to serve your families. So guys, have a phenomenal Tuesday. Lake Country crew will let you jump off to the Lake Country meetup. North Shore crew, I'll hang on and convert over to new listing and buyer needs. Have a great day, guys.